Hello guys, welcome to the current affairs session, where I'll be discussing all of the important topics that are necessary for UPSC, be it the before math or after math, or any understanding that is necessary for UPSC that I'm going to give in this current newspaper analysis. Without any further ado, let us start with the newspaper analysis. Today I'll be discussing newspaper of 9th April 2026. So let us look at what are the important aspects that are present in today's newspaper. Firstly, I've seen this editorial, right? Majority of the information that is currently present in the newspapers is from the editorial. I guess previously it was present in the puff pieces or in any other aspect of the newspaper. The important news would be present, but in the current times, I guess there's a lot of politics compared to important information for examinations. So let us see what is present in this particular editorial. It says Jan Vishwas bill is all about trust-based compliances. Right? It says Jan Vishwas 2.0 is all about trust-based compliance. Jan Vishwas bill is basically a bill that is brought in to rationalize the penalties and the compliances that were there in all the laws. Right? It ensures there is fairer, trust-based, and easier implementation of laws, and there's no stringent punishments that are present for people who are violating petty laws, right? Instead of, for example, let's say in the Cosmetics Act 1940, in the Cosmetics Act 1940, if a person violated the law and brought in a what you call a cosmetic that is against the violations, then that person in the previous laws would get a punishment of 1 year, right? 1 year of imprisonment. But this current law is taking away that imprisonment and is actually replacing the imprisonment with penalties. Similarly, if the National Highway Act is present, right? Imagine the National Highway Act is present, and if any person or any individual or any organization or any institution is not keeping the highways safe, then that institution or that individual would face an imprisonment of 5 years. With the Jan Vishwas bill, that imprisonment will also be taken away and only penalties will be issued. Now, before going on to what are the benefits of Jan Vishwas bill and what are the improvements made to the Jan Vishwas bill 2.0, let us understand the difference between Jan Vishwas bill 2023 and Jan Vishwas bill 2026. Okay. The Jan Vishwas bill 2023, it decriminalizes over 183 provisions, right? 183 provisions across 42 central acts, whereas the 2026 proposes to amend at least almost 784 provisions in over 182 laws, right? Here only 42 central acts, whereas in this 2026 bill, it's trying to amend 182 central acts. Secondly, it replaces imprisonment with fines, whereas in the 2026 amendment, it introduces new mechanisms to tackle the mistakes. Now let us understand what are the new methods that have been brought in by the Jan Vishwas bill 2.0 and how does that impact the society or the companies on a larger scale. Firstly, the previous way was whenever a person commits a mistake or violates a law, they need to be a stringent action and they need to be imprisoned or have heavily fined. But after the Jan Vishwas bill, they are trying to recollect the mistakes, or they are asking them to recorrect the mistakes, and ensuring that there is less red tapeism and less fear among the companies that are present in India. Now, what are the changes? Firstly, in the previous times, instead of imprisonment, they came with improvement notice. Right? They came up with improvement notice. Now, what does this improvement notice do? Whenever a organization or an individual or an institution violates a law, they will be sent an improvement notice, meaning they will be sent a notice which will ensure that they are improving themselves. Right? The government will point out a certain flaw or certain regulation that they are violating, and they'll ask them to improve in that particular area, so that they will not be able to uh, uh, pay any fines or penalties. So first action is warning. The first action is warning. Then they'll come up with graded penalties. Right? Graded penalties. In the previous time, whenever the penalties were issued, there were one-time penalties, and those penalties used to be very high. It could be from 20,000 to 1 crore, or it could be any number. But this time, in graded penalties, they'll start with a small penalty. For example, if the regulation has been violated once, they will be paying a small penalty, and if they violated the particular law 2 to 3 times, they'll be paying a medium penalty, and if they violate that particular law more than 3 times or 4 times, then they'll pay a high penalty. This is how this particular Jan Vishwas bill tries to make the penalties or make the flaws a little fairer for the companies. And lastly, it is also trying to close the old cases. Right? Closing the old cases actually makes a big change in the entrepreneurship economy or the business economy, because when the High Court has around 5 crore cases pending. So as long as the case is pending in the High Court, the business will stop running, and the trust on the particular company is less. So by closing the old cases, it will ensure that the companies are running on a smoother manner, and also on a smooth scale. Okay, these are all the changes that are brought in the Jan Vishwas bill, and let us understand how the Jan Vishwas bill 2.0 is actually affecting the society. Firstly, reducing the burden on the high courts. As I said just now, the High Court has nearly 5 crore cases pending. 5 crore cases pending. So it actually reduces the burden on the High Court and ensures that a smoother and fairer justice at a faster pace. This is the first aspect. Second, less fear for businesses. Right? Many businesses are very scared when it comes to laws, because one small violation or one small non-compliance of a regulation would lead to the closure of that particular company. So companies such as MSMEs or small business, or all of these businesses which are not on a large scale, are very scared when it comes to compliance or regulations, because one small mistake can lead to closure. So it reduces the fear on MSMEs. Right? The third aspect that is very important is Indian economy. What you need to understand is that whenever there is high red tapeism, many companies won't be willing to invest in India. Whenever there is less red tapeism, and whenever the punishments are very less stringent, and there is scope for improvement, such as improvement notice, then the companies would be more willing to invest in India. So by keeping the Jan Vishwas Bill 2.0, more companies might come into India and invest into the India, and thereby increasing the economy, right? Increasing the GDP, and also increasing the employment in India. This is how the Jan Vishwas bill has a domino effect, where one aspect is affecting the other aspect. Right? This is what I wanted to discuss in this particular editorial, and you can use this particular editorial in GS3 when it comes to economy. How Jan Vishwas bill helps ensure there is GDP growth. You can also use it under GS2 in governance. Right? These are the two aspects in which you can use the Jan Vishwas bill 2.0. Right? Now moving on, India must now revamp its nuclear regulatory regime. Now this particular editorial is talking about nuclear program of India. Yesterday, I've discussed about the 3-stage program of India, and how there is Kalpakam nuclear plant, and how there is a fast breeder a prototype reactor and how everything works. Now let us understand how the India's nuclear regulatory regime works. Firstly, it is talking about the Kalpakam prototype fast breeder reactor, right? I'll slightly touch upon what is present in yesterday's newspaper. Firstly, we have a three-stage program: stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 program. Right? In stage 1, you use uranium-235 and uranium-238, where uranium-235 undergoes nuclear fusion, and the neutrons released under uranium-235 go and hit the uranium-238, which absorbs it and forms plutonium-239. Now this plutonium-239 is used in stage 2, right? Plutonium-239 and the leftover uranium-238 is used in stage 2, where plutonium-238 undergoes fission, and we will also have thorium-232. Now when it goes under fission, it releases neutrons, right? And the neutrons are absorbed by both uranium-238 and 232, where uranium-238 is producing plutonium-239, meaning it is producing more fuel. And the thorium-232 absorbs the neutrons and becomes a uranium-233, which is then again used in the stage 3. Now uranium-233 along with thorium-232. Now uranium-233 undergoes fission, which releases neutrons, thereby absorbing the 232. Thorium-232 absorbs the neutrons and ensures there is presence of uranium-233. This is how the three-stage program in India works. Now the article is talking about the second stage, where we'll be using a prototype fast breeder reactor. What is a fast breeder reactor? Fast breeder reactor is nothing but where the neutrons are fast in nature, and these fast neutrons hit the plutonium fuel, that is uranium-238, and breathes into more plutonium-239, meaning it's creating more fuel, right? This is called prototype fast breeder reactor, that is present in the Kalpakam, that is present in Tamil Nadu. Now the article is saying that we are focusing a lot on the nuclear, right? We are focusing a lot on nuclear. That is very important, but then again we are stressing much on thorium, because India has a lot of thorium reserves. We are focusing a lot on thorium usage, but the author says that just because we have a lot of thorium doesn't mean we have to use it that much. We can ensure that we are using less or small modular reactors to ensure that we are meeting the net zero emissions by 2070. That is our main goal. It is not the usage of thorium reserves that we have. It is meeting the climate targets is what our important goal is, and also ensuring that we have clean energy that is being generated in India. So these are the two main aspects that the author is trying to point out whenever we are talking about nuclear energy. Now he also tries to compare nuclear energy versus solar energy, right? Solar and wind energy. Nuclear energy, while it is expensive, it requires less land, right? Because setting up a nuclear plant requires less land. But when it comes to solar or wind energy, they are cheaper in nature, but they require more land. So whenever we are trying to set up a nuclear plant or a solar plant, we need to keep in mind the aspects such as land in the mind, because we are focusing on increasing solar energy, but then again the amount of land that is present in India is very less. So focusing a lot on solar energy is not a good idea, is what the author is trying to say. Rather than focusing on solar energy, which is cheaper but requires a lot of land, we can focus on nuclear energy. Nuclear energy currently is contributing to 3% of India's electricity, right? India's electricity, 3%, around 8.78 gigawatts, right? Nuclear energy is contributing to 3% of India's electricity demand and 8.78 gigawatts of energy. This is what the article is trying to say. Then again, about the regulatory regime in India, currently the nuclear framework is mainly a monopoly. Nuclear framework is mainly a monopoly, right? whenever there is or setting up of plants or regulation of plants or building of the components, everything is based on government only. But government has recently come up with the act, Shanti Act. The Shanti Act ensures that the monopoly is being changed from government to ensuring private sectors also participating in nuclear energy, generation, where private sectors are allowed to build components, operate the nuclear plants. This is how ensuring that we are using less money, less amount of government money, and ensuring that more private investors come into India and ensure they are setting up plants in India, so that nuclear energy makes a major part of India's energy sector. This is what the author is trying to say. Apart from this, we also are actually developing small modular reactors. I'll brief a little on small modular reactors that are present here. Small modular reactors. We have three small modular reactors. One is the Bharat small modular reactor, which generates around 220 megawatts of energy. Then we have small modular reactor 55, which generates around 55 megawatts of energy. Lastly, we have high pressure, high water gas reactor. Right, high water gas reactor, it is generating around 5 megawatts of energy. But what you need to understand about the high water gas reactor is that it not only generates electricity, but is also helpful in the production of hydrogen, which is very necessary for the hydrogen mission in India. Now there are types of hydrogen. We have yellow hydrogen, blue hydrogen, right, green hydrogen. Yellow hydrogen that is produced from electricity, right, from the power stations. Then we have green hydrogen, which is from the renewable energy. We also have pink hydrogen, which is mainly from nuclear power plants. So we have the high water reactor, which generates around 5 megawatt energy, which not only produces electricity but also produces hydrogen. This is what I wanted to convey when it comes to the small modular reactors. Now the Bharat SMR and small reactor 55 are built by Tarapur power station that is present in Maharashtra. And when it comes to the high water reactor, it is built by Bhabha Atomic Research Center, or BARC, that is present in Vizag. So these are all the information that I wanted to point out when it comes to this particular article. Okay, you can use this in science and technology. And you can also use this information in prelims. Okay, these are the two aspects where you can use this particular editorial or the information given in the particular editorial. Recapping all the information, India uses a 3-stage program. Nuclear energy is less space consuming. Nuclear energy contributes around 3% of electricity demand in India, and also is around 8.78 gigawatts. We have Shanti Act, right? Shanti Act to ensure private sector participation in nuclear energy production. And also we have three small modular reactors. One is the BSMR, or Bharat Small Modular Reactor, which generates around 550 megawatts of energy. Then we have SMR 55, which generates around 55 megawatts of energy. And we have high water reactor, which generates around 5 megawatts of energy and also is helpful in production of hydrogen. These are all the important aspects that are present in this particular editorial. Now moving on, we have the thermal cost of India's textile surge. This particular article is mainly talking about how there is turmoil in Bangladesh, right? There is political instability in Bangladesh. When there is political instability in the Bangladesh, many countries will not be willing to invest in that country. So the country that is actually near to Bangladesh is India, right? Whenever there is more amount of political instability in Bangladesh, more countries try to invest in India. Just like that, it has happened, right? Many countries are trying to invest in many brands have come to Tirupur and Bangalore. Right? Many companies from Bangladesh have shifted to Tirupur and Bangalore. But what you need to understand is that whenever the demand is very high, the workload is also very high. But it's not only the demand and the workload, but it's also the environment that the workers are present in. So this particular editorial is talking about that environment. Whenever we are facing a high demand or high output, how much environment is actually coping up for the output is what the editorial is talking about. Let's say, firstly, they're saying that whenever there is high amount of output required, right, the environment is very important. Let's say a textile worker in Tamil Nadu, it says that a textile worker in Tamil Nadu loses 50% of her work capacity on 40 degrees at afternoon. The statistics say that whenever the temperature is 40 degrees, right, that the worker uses 50% work capacity. What you need to also understand is that whenever there is reduction in the capacity of work, the wages also decrease, because the wages are linked directly to the amount of work that is done by the worker. So it is indirectly the worker is paying for the price of climate change that is done by major countries or companies that are present in India. Why does the worker have to pay for the price that is done by some X person or the Y person, right? This is what the article is trying to say. Secondly, the article is also trying to say a few aspects which I think will help you guys understand a little. In places like Palghar, the 50% production has dropped because of the heat that is being present in the current environment. With the high amount of heat present, the workers are not able to work at their highest level capacity, due to which they are not able to meet the demand. Okay, that is one aspect. And machines heat. It's not only the workers that face the brunt of the heat, it is also the machines that also face the brunt. Whenever the machines heat a lot, they go wear and tear, and they usually break down a little earlier. What happens when the machines break down earlier? It increases the revenue expenditure, right? For the repairs and all. Repairs is capital expenditure, but there's no actual capital asset that is being produced. Okay, so whenever there's high amount of machine heat, the machines tend to break down and is actually depreciating, and which is indirectly or directly affecting the GDP. What is GDP? GDP is nothing but the amount of products that are produced within a particular year. Now, NDP is nothing but national domestic product. NDP is when GDP minus depreciation is NDP. Now, whenever there is high amount of depreciation, the amount of real output is actually reduced. So whenever the machines are heating, it is indirectly reducing the output of NDP. This is the other aspect that you need to keep in mind. Then the statistics say that with every 1 degree increase in the temperature, we have an output decrease of 2%. Meaning this 2% output is yearly. So whenever there is a temperature rise in 1%, there is a output decrease 2% yearly. This is the other point that you need to keep in mind. Then we have 45 million, right? This 45 million are the people that are present in the textile industry. Right? 45 million people are present in the textile industry, and whenever the environment is affecting the textile industry, it is indirectly or directly affecting the 45 million people that are employed under the textile industry. This is the other point that you need to keep in mind. The reason I'm giving all of these information is because this information is really important, and you need to remember all of these because you can use this stat in mains, right? Supply chain trap. What is a supply chain trap? Supply chain trap is nothing but where the workers are, you cannot push the workers, because high amount of heat means the workers would not be able to work at their potential capacity. So you cannot push the workers, right? Cannot put the workers. Whenever you cannot push the workers, what happens? There is low productivity. This is called a double-edged sword. It's also called the supply chain trap, where you cannot push the workers to bring in more output, but you can also not lose the amount of productivities that is there. So either way, you are actually losing the people, or you are also you are either using the business. So this is called a supply chain trap. You can use these kind of terms in general studies paper 1 or general studies paper 3 whenever we are talking about society or economy. Okay, and then India may lose around 5.8% of working hours, and that leads to 34 million full-time jobs. Right? India may lose around 5.8 times of 5.8% of working hours, which is equivalent to 34 million full jobs. This is what India might face whenever it comes to high amount of environmental temperature. Now, what are the solutions that are present for this particular situation? Firstly, the government can treat these kind of risk as an economic risk, meaning government can treat heat as an economic risk. Secondly, the factories might ensure that there is cooling mechanisms in the factories, which will ensure that the workers are not facing any reduction in the working capacity. Right. Thirdly, investing in R&D, wherein you are actually coming up with innovations which will ensure that there is reduced heat in India. These are all the aspects that you need to keep in mind whenever it comes to production. It is not only the economic aspect, it is also a health aspect when it comes to the workers. So these are all the information that is present in today's editorial, right? Other than that, I don't think there's anything that is that important. If I'll find anything, I'll try to cover it in the shorts. But yeah, that's it for today's newspaper. I hope you guys learnt a lot, right? We'll meet you guys in the next current affairs class. Thank you.